Hello friends, welcome to Insights IPC initiative. In today's video, we are going to discuss about 3 bills related to criminal laws. You know that our Home Minister Amit Shah, he introduced 3 bills regarding the criminal laws. Previously, we used to have Indian Penal Code, now CrPC, as well as Indian Evidence Act. Of course, still these are there now. So to replace them, our Home Minister introduced 3 bills. They are Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita Bill 2023 to replace the IPC and Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita 2023 to replace CrPC and Bharatiya Saksha Bill 2023 to replace the Indian Evidence Act 1872. So we are going to discuss about this development. So how these new bills are going to be and how many sections are going to be there and what are the significant changes you can observe. And of course, we will also discuss what is going to be there in the future, because now these are introduced just now in the house. What are the further developments you can expect in the coming months? So this is the introduction regarding today's video, and this topic is related to a UPSC Prelims exam. Of course, in terms of mains, it is related to government policies and government interventions. Okay, next, video components. In this video, we are going to discuss about why it is in news and what about this information regarding these 2 new bills, 3 new bills. Then what is the difference between the substantive laws and procedural laws, and IPC 1860, when it first time came and who introduced that and how it was drafted and when it was drafted. All that information we are going to discuss. Then we will discuss about CrPC 1973, Indian Evidence Act 1872 and a few provisions under the IPC. Okay, what kind of changes we are going to have, that we will discuss. And finally, how this bill is going to be processed in future. Okay, what kind of developments you can expect in coming months, that we will discuss. First, you have to understand, so who introduced these bills? First, basic things first. Who introduced these bills? As these bills are related to the criminal laws, all these 3 bills are introduced by our Home Minister Amit Shah. Introduced these 3 bills. Where he introduced? Lok Sabha he introduced. But you have to understand, students, minister can introduce bills in any house, either in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. But in this case, he introduced the bills in Lok Sabha. How many bills? 3 bills are introduced. What type of bills these are? Okay, now tell me in comment, students. These 3 bills, okay, this Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023, Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita 2023 and Bharatiya Saksha Bill 2023. These 3 bills are going to be what type of bills? Are they money bill or financial bill or constitution amendment bill or ordinary bill? Which type of bills these 3? Tell me this answer in and put your answer in comments. Next, how these names are going to be changed. So now IPC is going to be Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 and CrPC 1973. It is going to be the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita and Indian Evidence Act is going to be the Bharatiya Saksha Bill 2023. These are the changes going to be there. Now let's see some basic changes regarding the each and every act. Okay. First, Indian Penal Code 1860. Listen, students, Indian Penal Code is a substantive law. Actually, you have to know that laws are 2 types: substantive law, procedural law. Substantive laws generally they give definition regarding the crimes and they give definition regarding the punishments, whereas the procedural laws, these procedural laws will implement whatever they present in the substantive law. So substantive law talks about the nature of punishment, whereas the procedural law they talks about how you will implement that punishment. That matters a lot. So IPC is a substantive law. It was brought in 1860. Now it is going to be replaced by Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita Bill 2023. The new bill is having 356 sections, whereas the old one it used to have 511 sections. So 175 sections amended and 8 sections have been added and 22 sections been repealed. This is the summary regarding the IPC. Whereas regarding the CrPC, Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita 2023, it is going to have how many sections? 533 sections. Previously CrPC used to have 478 sections and 176 sections changed, 9 sections added and 9 more sections they've been repealed. This is about the brief overview of CrPC. Then Indian Evidence Act 1872, it is going to have 170 sections instead of the previously 167 sections. Out of this, 23 sections been changed, one section is added, and 5 sections been repealed. So this is the brief overview regarding the Indian Evidence Act. Here you have to understand, IPC is a substantive law, CrPC is a procedural law, and Indian Evidence Act is both substantive as well as procedural law. Okay, so this is the brief overview. Who introduced these bills? Our Prime Minister, our Home Minister Amit Shah introduced. That is the news. Why it is in news? He introduced 3 bills, and these 3 bills are going to replace, like I said earlier, IPC, CrPC, and Indian Evidence Act. And the names also we have seen. What is the reason behind this? The reason behind this is, according to government, these bills are going to, bring some new changes in the criminal system according to the changing nature of the society. Previous laws such as IPC, CrPC, and Indian Evidence Act, they are reflecting the colonial nature. They were made especially during the Britishers' time, or they may having the features of this British judicial administration. So according to the changing Indian society needs, these 3 bills been introduced. That is about the view of the government of India. Like I said earlier, substantive laws, that talks about the rights and obligations of the individuals. Some substantive law examples: Law of Contracts, Indian Succession Act regarding the property, Transfer of Property Act, and IPC. All these are the substantive acts. And next, procedural acts. These laws talks about how we are going to implement the substantive laws, CrPC as well as the CPC, Civil Procedure Code. Civil Procedure Code deals with the procedures related to civil cases, whereas CrPC deals with the procedure regarding the criminal cases. So these are the broad overview, difference between the substantive law and procedural law. So here, very significant thing you have to understand, the substantive law generally it don't deal with the matters inside the court, whereas the procedural law generally they deals with the matters which is going inside the court, and they establish the rights and obligations. Here they implement the substantive law. Okay, substantive law is independent because it defines the crime, it defines the punishment, it is independent. But without substantive law, there is no procedural. So it is not independent. That you have to understand. But rest of the things are pretty much very minor differences. But whatever the things I explained here, these are the major differences between the substantive law and procedural law. Next, let us see some of the historical background of the IPC. The IPC was the main criminal code, and it was the one which used to define about the crimes as well as the quantum of punishment. Who drafted this IPC? This IPC was drafted the first time by Macaulay, and it started implementing from 1st of January 1860. Students, Macaulay also, he was the first chairman of First Law Commission. Chairman of First Law Commission. Macaulay, very, very important. The same Macaulay used to be the fourth member in the Governor General Executive Council. Fourth member in the Governor General Executive Council. It was done through which act? Through which charter act it was done? If you know, put your answer in the comments. IPC, it used to have 511 sections, and now it is replacing with the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Next, CrPC. For the first time, the CrPC was enacted in 1861. Later, it subjected to amendments in further course of the time in 1872, 1882, and 1898. Later, we got independence. Even though in principle it is more close related to the Britishers, but still completely we overhauled. We brought new CrPC in 1973. Still, because it is having some kind of British penal provisions, and because it is not reflecting the Indian society, now we are replacing that with the new law. Now, this CrPC, it used to have around 160 sections been changed, and 9 been repealed, and 9 were added, and now the new one, it is going to have 533 sections. Compared to the old one and new one, already I explained in the beginning of this video. Next, Indian Evidence Act. Indian Evidence Act is mainly deals with the how you should collect the evidence, what you consider as an evidence, and how the evidence will be processed. All this comes under the Indian Evidence Act, and it was made in 1872. Okay, and the Indian Evidence Act, it came into force from 1st September 1872, and it consists of 167 sections. Now the new one is going to contain 170 sections. This is the overview regarding the Indian Evidence Act. Now let's see what are the significant changes you can see under IPC. In IPC section 109, this organized crime, now the new one, okay, compared to the old one. Now the new IPC, okay, the new one is going to contain the word organized crime, especially one section dedicated, that is going to be the section 109. We don't need to remember the sections now because it's the only bill. There may be some changes, and once it become act, then only you have to remember the sections. But now we'll see what kind of punishments they are going to include. And section 111, it included the offense of terrorist acts. Section 150, it related to offenses which are affecting the sovereignty and unity of the country. Section 302, snatching. And one more thing, students, the old IPC, it did not contain any punishment for the mob lynching. The students, mob lynching is becoming very high due to the religious or caste, because of various things, cow vigilantism. Because of all these things, mob lynching is increasing a lot. To deal with mob lynching, the new law, it added the punishment for mob lynching, and if anyone is caught under mob lynching, they are punishable up to even the death penalty also. Very, very important. And even fugitives. Fugitives are the one who committed economic offenses like Vijay Mallya in India, and they are going abroad. Now at the moment, to trial them, we need to bring them back. We require the other country help in terms of extradition. Now, ex parte trial. Without that person being extradited to India, even we can start the trial. That also very interesting thing. Next, zero FIR is adding into the new, like IPC. Zero FIR. I made a video on zero FIR regarding the Manipur violence. I am including that video in these cards here. You can check the zero FIR and the detailed analysis regarding that. And here this new IPC, okay, of course we should not call it IPC, but new law. It is going to contain how the trial, like especially the police cross-examination, all these things must be video conference, and video recording must be there. That means to reduce the custodial death. Then if anyone is subjected to, punished under gang rape, they'll be punished for 20 years or life imprisonment, or minor rape. It attracts death penalty, and judgment must be delivered in 30 days. Next, adultery. Previously, the old IPC, it described adultery as a crime, but Supreme Court in 2018, Joseph Shine versus Union of India, clearly given a judgment that adultery is not a crime, and it is a gender biased one. Adultery can be considered as a ground to take divorce, but it cannot be considered as a crime. That is the reason the Supreme Court in the judgment, it struck down the section 497 of the IPC. Now the new bill, it did not contain this section 497 because Supreme Court already clarified that adultery is not a crime. Next, same-sex marriage. Previously IPC section 377 used to contain the same-sex marriage as a crime, but now after Supreme Court judgment, in the case of Navtesh Singh Johar versus Union of India, based on this, the same-sex is decriminalized now. Even the same-sex couple, they are demanding that their marriage should be legalized. In this context, the old IPC, which used to contain section 377, now the present new bill, it is not having this section based on the Supreme Court judgment. Now what is going to be happen next? Now Amit Shah introduced these three bills, and these three bills are referred to the Parliamentary Standing Committee. Already I told you, students, Parliamentary Standing Committees, there are 24 departmental standing committees. If you remember, tell me, students, how many departmental standing committees are controlled by Lok Sabha and how many controlled by Rajya Sabha? Now these three bills, they will go to the Parliamentary Standing Committees, and the Parliamentary Standing Committees will discuss over this. And the Parliamentary Standing Committees, they contain the representative from various parties. Even they request the officials or anyone representative from Home Ministry, they'll seek some clarifications. After getting the relevant information, they'll put this bill for the public under public notice. public in general, as well as some experts also, they can give their opinion. After summing up all these opinions from the various domains of the people, then they'll give report to the government. So remember here, the parliamentary committees, whatever the recommendations they are giving to government, these are not binding in nature. So parliamentary committees suggestions are only advisory in nature, they are not binding in nature. So here they are not binding. And of course, the bills cannot be discussed in the parliament as long as they are finished with the committees. If they are within the committees, in the parliament you can't discuss the bill. Once the committee submitted the report, this parliamentary committees, then the government will either they will modify whatever the suggestions according to the standing committee, or they may completely replace the old bill with a new bill, same like digital data protection bill, or they may not consider the suggestions at all. After this examination is done by the parliamentary committee, then it will go to the government, and government will officially introduce the bill in the house. So there is no time limit that within this much time the standing committee has to finish their study. They may take, sometimes it may be over a year also regarding the data protection. Once the committee report is done, once the government is introduced, then it will be put for a debate and the house has to pass the bill. In this case, because it is an ordinary bill, it requires only simple majority. But the question is, now the bill is introduced in Lok Sabha. If the bill is pending in Lok Sabha, or if the Lok Sabha passes and if the bill is pending in Rajya Sabha, meanwhile, if the Lok Sabha is dissolved, the bill will be lapsed. In polity class, I told you, any bill introduced in Lok Sabha and pending in Lok Sabha, that will be lapsed if the Lok Sabha is dissolved. So that may be the case also, if they are unable to pass through the both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha before the dissolution of this present house. Next, yesterday's video question. Consider the following statement. Originally, the commission had only one election commissioner. This is regarding the election commissioners. Which one is the correct? This first statement is wrong because it is not according to 42nd Amendment. Second statement is also wrong because they cannot be removed by the president. They can be removed by the parliament through special majority. Which one is right? Neither one nor two. Okay. Next, today's video question. How many types of punishments have been prescribed under the Indian Penal Codes? How many types of punishments prescribed under Indian Penal Codes? So this is about today's video discussion, students. As we reach to the end of the video, now let us quickly revise what we discussed in this video. In today's video, we discussed about 3 criminal bills which introduced by our Home Minister in the Lok Sabha, and what is the essence of these 3 bills, and what is the overview of these 3 bills, how many sections they are going to contain, and some of the changes, important one, which are going to be there in the upcoming IPC, which means this Bharati Nyay Sanhita, some of the updates such as mob lynching and punishment on minor rape and decriminalization of the same-sex marriage and adultery, all these kind of important updates we discussed. This is the detailed analysis regarding the 3 new amendment bills regarding the criminal laws.